Powerskateshow podcast series. I'm with my other friend, Grant Flood, the other host, and today we have a special guest, John from Off the Wall Hockey on YouTube. John, thanks for coming out today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, man, for sure. It's great to be here. It's awesome. And hope we have a great show tonight. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so John, I think it's time to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm John from Off the Wall Hockey on YouTube.
So John, I think it's time for you to introduce yourself, like what's your YouTube and like how long have you played hockey and how you became a hockey fan.
Oh man, I've been a hockey fan my whole life. I played hockey for 12 years and played from when I was a little kid all the way through high school. And Boston Bruins fan from Massachusetts, born and raised, still live here. So Bruins all the way, but I do the entire NHL on YouTube. My Off the Wall Hockey covers the whole league and even hockey stuff outside of the NHL if it's big enough news. So yeah, it's pretty much it. Check it out. I've got about I'm closing in on 1.4K subs here pretty soon. So hopefully we hit that soon. But it's fun. We do a lot of live stuff on the channel, and then obviously I've got daily videos coming out as well and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, and you should definitely check it out if you're a hockey fan.
Yes, absolutely. I would definitely recommend checking out John. Great YouTube channel. Hopped over, saw a few of his videos last night, and he has done a fantastic job so far. So definitely give Off the Wall Hockey a sub on YouTube for sure. But Alex, you want to get into your topics first? Did Alex freeze up here? Oh, no. You may have.
I can't hear him or anything.
Yeah, he may have frozen up. Oh, no. This does, unfortunately, sometimes happen, but yes, so hopefully he can join back with us if he can. I'll kick him off and then try to put him back on. But I guess for the moment, I guess we could talk about the AHL canceling the remainder of their season, which makes me so sad. Just like you, I've been a hockey fan my whole life. I live in Massachusetts. I was going to go to the Providence Bruins game on March 21st, but of course that got postponed, and now of course that isn't going to happen. So I'm a bit disappointed. But you think the AHL is doing the right thing here? I think they are, because, you know, they're a minor league team and they obviously are making as much money as the NHL. So I think they may have made the right decision by canceling the remainder of the season.
They didn't have a choice. A lot of people, so when this news first came out, I saw a lot of people comparing it to the NHL and saying, uh-oh, the AHL is canceling. That means the NHL is going to. And that's not the case at all. The AHL financially, money-wise, could not do summer hockey the way that the NHL can. Because the AHL doesn't make enough money to probably even play without having fans in the arenas. They need that ticket revenue. They need the merchandise and the concession revenue. The NHL has they've got massive TV contracts with NBC. They've got, all these merch deals. They've got all these corporate sponsors who the NHL has loads of money compared to the AHL. The AHL didn't have a choice. They cannot play games without fans. It's not going to happen. And they didn't have the ability to play over the summer and get all of these arenas and pay this arena staff and pay, the players and pay all these things. And just the league officials, and there's so much behind the scenes stuff that goes into it. If the AHL doesn't have that kind of money to be able to operate and do that, the NHL does, which is why the AHL canceling has absolutely no effect on the NHL, because the money situation is so different with those two leagues.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I think the AHL did do the right thing by canceling the season as well. And you're just simply right. I mean, obviously the financial is going to really hurt them because, they just simply can't. They just simply can't, just continue on without any fans at crowd, that would really, make them probably borderline bankrupt. So,
yeah, absolutely.
good thing that, that's happening. Oh, shoot. Let's see if Alex can hopefully you can quit lagging here and we can get him back on. All right, Alex, can you hear us?
All right, yeah, I apologize, guys.
All right.
Bro needs better Wi-Fi.
Let's get to our first topic. All right, we're good? All right, let's get to our first topic, which is the unrestricted free agents. First player is Wayne Simmonds from the Buffalo Sabres. He's 31 years old. His last salary cap was $5 million, originally to the New Jersey Devils. Will he resign with Buffalo or no?
No. Wayne Simmonds is not going back to Buffalo. I don't know why he would go back to Buffalo. Wayne Simmonds at this point is a fourth liner. The offense is gone from Wayne Simmonds. This was a guy who was a 30-goal scorer with Philadelphia and a very, very good power forward for a long time in the NHL. He's now over 30. The offense is gone. He's still an extremely valuable guy to have on your team in a bottom six role as a mentor to the younger players, as someone who can stand up for his teammates, as someone who's not afraid to play physically, and is just, he's the perfect locker room guy. He's such a respected player. Wayne Simmonds is going to sign a cheap deal somewhere where he has a chance to go deep into the playoffs and probably win and may at least have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. I don't see him going back to Buffalo. I really don't see any reason why he would go back to Buffalo. They're not going to be winning a Stanley Cup anytime soon.
Yeah, you're 100% right, John. Remember, the Devils traded Wayne Simmonds for just a fifth-round pick. This really shows how, washed up Wayne Simmonds has become over the past couple of seasons. I agree with you 100%. I'm thinking a 1-2 year wicked cheap deal to, try and win a cup somewhere. I'm thinking maybe Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, bring a little bit more grit to them, maybe go back to Philadelphia perhaps. But, yeah, I definitely would not see him going back to Buffalo either. I just simply wouldn't think it would make sense. And at this point, he only has 1 or 2, really solid NHL years left before he either, retires or becomes an AHL player. So I definitely think Wayne Simmonds would make the right decision by signing to a contender during the offseason.
Yeah, I would think so.
Alex keeps on glitching out here. I don't know what's up with that. But, yeah, man, Wayne Simmonds. I remember when he was on the Kings at one point, and he was.
Yeah, he came up with LA. That was right into the league.
Yeah, with the Kings, and of course had so many good years with the Flyers, and then unfortunately, Fire time caught up with him, and now he's no more than a third, fourth line right winger who's still pretty good, and like you said, leader in the locker room. But hopefully, Alex can not lag out here.
All right, I apologize once again. Seems like my internet's being weird, but let's move on. On defense, we got Sammy Bottom. He's 28 years old. His last cap hit was $4.875 million per year, originally from the New Jersey Devils. Now he's with the Hurricanes. Will he re-sign with Carolina?
No. Carolina's blue line is loaded. Absolutely loaded. I would think then they're going to have players that they want to keep ahead of Sammy Bottom. And Bottom was injured again this season. That's been a huge issue for him, is even just staying on the ice. There are plenty of teams out there that are going to be looking for defense. And Bottom's a guy that I think if you look at a team like the Montreal Canadiens or possibly the Edmonton Oilers, a team that needs someone to add to their back end, he's going to get a lot bigger role in the lineup and a lot more money from a team like that than he's ever going to get from Carolina, who, when you look at Carolina with Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin as your top pair, you have Brett Pesce, you have Joel Edmondson, you've got Brady Shea now, who they just traded for. You've got, I know I'm missing guys, I'm just going off the top of my head here. You've got Hayden Fleury and Trevor Van Riemsdyk as depth guys. You've got Jake Gardner, who just signed there last offseason. Carolina's blue line is already loaded without Sammy Bottom, so I don't see him going back to Carolina.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you too. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed that one right on the head. I mean, the Carolina blue line is just absolutely stacked. I could definitely see Vatanen, going somewhere like Montreal, Edmonton, a team who's just like one solid player away from like a playoff push. I could definitely see them signing either to Montreal or Edmonton. I could also see the Islanders or Rangers being a possibility as well. But Sammy Vatanen, he's a pretty good defenseman, he's very good in Anaheim, and, he's played pretty well in New Jersey and Carolina. So you definitely know he's going to get about a 4 or 5 year deal worth about $40 million or so, because he is a pretty solid defenseman overall. So he's definitely going to get a payday during the offseason. But, I definitely agree. I don't see him sign with the Hurricanes either.
Alex keeps freezing. His Wi-Fi will not work.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. No. So last week he was fine.
Huh. I wish I had his list, because I just ripped through all the different free agents. I mean, there's so many. There's some good ones this year, and there's a lot of under the radar ones this year. But obviously the big ones are like Pietrangelo, Taylor Hall, Torrey Krug. There's Kevin Shattenkirk. I think I'm actually going to be doing a video on Kevin Shattenkirk tomorrow. Not tomorrow, Friday. I think he might be the most interesting free agent this offseason, just because Shattenkirk was so good with the St. Louis Blues. Then he got traded to Washington, and they didn't go deep into the playoffs. And then he signed with the Rangers and was horrible.
Yeah, and then now he's on the Lightning, and
he had a really good bounce back year this year with the Lightning. So, he took that cheap 1 year deal with Tampa Bay to try to get his career back on track, and he did exactly that. He had 34 points this year. He had a really good season, and now I think a team looking for a defenseman. I mean, Kevin Shattenkirk might be a number 3 defenseman again in the NHL, which is really interesting and really cool after how bad he was with the New York Rangers.
Yeah, and you especially bring up that point, especially if Krug re-signs with Boston. Sammy Vatanen goes elsewhere. A lot of teams will be really looking at guys like Kevin Shattenkirk, thinking, oh, okay, well, we can't get Krug or Sammy Vatanen, but we can still get this, veteran leadership and a good defenseman who can, bring you at least 30 points a year, if not more. So, Alex just texted me, got kicked out, so we'll remove him from the stream and we'll add him back in. But, you make a very good point about Kevin Shattenkirk. Should be interesting where he will go as well. All right, let's see. What the heck? Why is StreamYard or Alex's Wi-Fi being weird?
Yeah, I think it must be like his internet connection or something, because mine's fine.
Yeah, I guess so. You are doing good, yeah. All right.
All right. Next one. This is another interesting one. We got Cody Ceci from the Toronto Maple Leafs. His last contract was $4.5 million per year. We need to stay with Toronto, yes or no?
No, Toronto can't afford him, first of all. And Cody Ceci is one of the worst defensemen in the NHL. Like, have you seen this guy play? He's horrible. He's so bad in his own zone. I love Leafs fans I love watching Leafs fans get mad at Cody Ceci, because it's literally every game. It's literally every game they are just cussing this guy out because he is so bad in his own zone. Cody Ceci is going to go somewhere. Someone's going to sign him. I don't know why, but it's not going to be Toronto. They don't have the money. Their cap situation is messed up enough as it is. I honestly see him going to like a lousy bottom of the league type team who just, needs to fill out their roster, like maybe in Ottawa, back to Ottawa maybe, or possibly to Detroit or to Buffalo, somewhere like that. I don't even know who would want Cody Ceci at this point. He is so bad in his own zone.
Yeah, John, you basically took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I was about to say, he's either coming back to Ottawa, Detroit, or Buffalo as well. He did have a couple solid years in Ottawa, so I think that's why a team would perhaps want to go after him. But granted, that was like almost 3 years ago at this point. I mean, he just hit a wall ever since he went to Toronto. So really,
looked brain dead.
But I mean, he's definitely lost his touch.
I just like he can bring you offense. He can put up some points as a defenseman, but he's so brain dead in his own zone. I just don't like you watch him play and you don't know what he's doing 90% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point there, yeah.
I can't stand Ceci. He's one of my least favorite players in the league, to say the least.
And I like Cody Ceci. That was like a while back, though. This is back when he was on the Senators, and he was still like a pretty solid overall player. But like I said, ever since he joined Toronto, the past couple of years of his career, it's just been derailed to this point. I mean, at least if you're Cody Ceci, the only thing you could hope is that you're Kevin Shattenkirk 2.0, or else you might be playing in the AHL in the next year or two, because it is not looking pretty.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that.
All right. Well, seems like Alex is just giving us a good player. No, we can talk about it for a few minutes until he comes back on. I guess, kind of works, but all right. Hopefully this will work. At least last more than one player.
All right. I don't know why I earned that, but we'll just move on, and I apologize for what's happening. It's just we'll just have to deal with it. All right. Last one. Radko Gudas. His last contract was $2.345 million per year. Originally, is he going to resign with what or no?
I could see Gudas still staying in Washington. I love Radko Gudas. I think he's a really good bottom pair, tough defensive defenseman. I think, you see teams that win in the playoffs, they have players like Radko Gudas. I think for sure that there are going to be, if he doesn't stay in Washington, there are going to be plenty of teams that want to add him to their defense. But I could definitely see him staying in Washington as a third pair guy. I don't know a ton about Washington's prospect situation, but I don't think they have particularly any great defensemen that are, knocking on the door to take somebody's NHL spot. Brendan Dillon, I don't think is going to re-sign with Washington. I think he's going to get more money somewhere else. So there should still be a roster spot available if Gudas wants to stay with the Capitals. And I think that's a very real possibility. That fit has worked out really well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I think Radko Gudas definitely should re-sign with Washington. The Capitals could easily pick him up too. A easy 2-3 year deal for a guy who was entering his 30s. I mean, he is still an all-around solid player. I liked him all the way back when he was with the Lightning. I mean, Radko Gudas, he's always struck me as a guy who, he's not your top-pairing defenseman, but if you need depth or if you need a defenseman for a playoff run, definitely bring him in. And, Washington obviously is still well in playoff contention, and of course, championship contention for that matter. So, yeah, I mean, it would be absolutely crazy if they didn't re-sign him, even if it's for a cheap one-year deal. I mean, I would just re-sign him, and then, you can't re-sign next year, perhaps trade him for a good bid at the deadline. I mean, there's definitely ways you can work around Radko Gudas, but I wouldn't just make him, hit free agency. I would certainly, if they're going to get rid of him, I would certainly try to re-sign him to a one-year deal and then trade him, because I can definitely see a team like St. Louis, if Pietrangelo's gone, maybe Tampa Bay to replace Shattenkirk. I can definitely see a lot of teams that are trying to pick him up. I could maybe even see like Ottawa or Buffalo to try to pair him up with Rasmus Dahlin. I could see a lot of, or not Rasmus Dahlin, Rasmus Ristolainen. What am I talking about? But anyway, yeah, I could definitely see stuff like that working out. But Radko Gudas is a good defenseman.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if he's your number 5 or number 6 on your decor, you're in pretty good shape for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there'll certainly be a market for him if he doesn't stay with Washington. But if I'm the Capitals, that's definitely a guy that I want to re-sign.
Yeah, definitely over Glenn Dillon as well. Why?
Bro,
Alex, can you hear us?
he's straight frozen.
Why is Alex's defense or Wi-Fi always gives me trouble? I don't know why, John, but that's unfortunate.
Well, let's just keep going. Let's see. What else do you want to touch on here? Let's just go.
All right, let's see if we'll try to resume here. But yeah, the stuff I posted on my Instagram, I also kind of refer to back when I talk about these shows. And, I guess we could talk about, how about this one? Because this one kind of shocked me a little bit. How about Yuri Laterra? He was a very good player on the Blues and Flyers, but now bumped down to the Spartak Moscow of the KHL.
Just mind-boggling now, the fact that Braden Shen is so good for the St. Louis Blues and Yuri Laterra is now in the KHL. But, Laterra went to Philadelphia and just fell flat on his face. He was terrible and only lasted, like a year and a little over a year with the Flyers, and then he was gone. And now he's off to Europe. And you see that quite a bit actually in the NHL, but not so much where a guy who's still younger and you thought was still on that trajectory, getting better and going up, and just completely falls off the face of the earth, and just off to Europe, which happens. So many ex-NHL players that just can't make it in the league anymore go and play over in the KHL or in the Swiss league or in Sweden or any of those European leagues. And add Yuri Laterra to the list.
I mean, he struck me as a good player at first, but now he's 32. He's had a few bad years. He had a couple bad years on the Flyers, and now he's in the KHL. Probably not gonna make it back. I mean, I really wouldn't see why someone would really want to bring him in. I mean, he's not really like a veteran leader or anything like that. So there's kind of no point in really bringing him back. And like I said, this is really unfortunate because I mean we saw so much potential with this guy when he was in St. Louis, but unfortunately now he's 32.
Yeah,
he's definitely not going to make it back into the league, and it's unfortunate because he was a pretty solid player at first, but what are you going to do? And he can join guys like Jonas Hiller and like Jason Palmerville in the KHL now. I mean,
that's the thing is so many guys, when they just can't cut it in the NHL anymore, they end up going over to Europe.
All right. Alex switched to his computer, so hopefully this will be better.
Yeah, hopefully this
I'm right here. I got it. It's working.
We actually got him back. Nice.
Okay, now you guys can hear me?
Yeah,
better.
Thank you, you two. All right, here's an interesting one. I want everyone to argue in the chat, which I think it's going to be funny. Who should win the MVP this year? So I know, John, I think you made a video about who's going to be the MVP. So what's your pick?
Nathan MacKinnon. There's so much. I mean, there are multiple good candidates this year. You can absolutely make a case for Leon Draisaitl. You can make a case for Panarin, Artemi Panarin. If Buffalo is any good, Jack Eichel would have a massive case. Now they're not, so that hurts his chances. To me, there is one choice for MVP this year, and it's Nathan MacKinnon. Mikko Rantanen missed a large part of this season with injury. Gabriel Landeskog missed the early part of this season with injury. MacKinnon didn't have his two line mates. He still put up a massive number of points. Colorado's team has been riddled with injuries all season long. I don't know McKinnon's point total. I'm going to look it up off the top of my head because he has more than 40 more points than anyone else on the Colorado Avalanche. And he didn't do that with a bad Colorado team. You see that sometimes if there's a really good player on a team that's not so good, they'll be the leader of the team by far. Nathan MacKinnon this season, let me look his point total up because I want to make sure I get this right because this is insane. This is insane. Nathan MacKinnon, missing his two line mates for much of this season, put up 93 points in 69 games on an injury-riddled Colorado team, has more than 40 more points than anyone else on the team, and they're the second-place team in the Western Conference. They're not a bubble playoff team. They're not a non-playoff team. Nathan MacKinnon almost single-handedly dragged this team on his back to second place in the Western Conference. I mean, there are a lot of great players in the league. Nathan MacKinnon, what he did this year, absolutely is the most valuable player in the league.
I mean, Nathan MacKinnon, he has, shocked me a lot this year. And I definitely, you make a very good point. He has basically been carrying that, Avalanche offense, especially. I mean, yeah, Cale Makar has developed, and who really saw Pavel Francois as being so good either. But you are 100% right about Nathan MacKinnon. He has been carrying that Avalanche offense. I would have to say, though, if I had to choose MVP, I'm sorry, I would have to go with Leon Draisaitl. It's just simply remarkable. 110 points in 71 games, lead the league in assists with 67. I mean, I think really, if you're going to choose three players for MVP, I think it's either going to be Draisaitl, MacKinnon, or Pasternak. And I think Draisaitl he's had the most complete year out of the three. Yes, I think I would definitely say MacKinnon's probably deserved it the most. But the thing is, I feel like, Draisaitl, he's been more of a complete player this year, if that makes sense. So, plus 110 points in 71 games. I mean, what? That's just crazy. Leads the league in assists, like I said, with 67. So, I would have to go with Draisaitl. But, yeah, I would definitely put, MacKinnon, Pasternak, Panarin, all those guys definitely in the mix as well. But, what do you think? If Draisaitl won MVP, what would you think?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in a huge debate between Draisaitl and MacKinnon. Yes, John, I agree with you. MacKinnon deserves to win the MVP. Like from your view, like Landeskog missed time. Rantanen missed time. Cale Makar missed time, and just pretty much they're all star players, like young future players. I never seen someone in any kind of my lifetime just racking up points for a player who does not have their star players right next to him. He just did it all alone, and I just could not believe so. MacKinnon definitely gets the heart, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, what does it for me is the 40 plus more points than anyone else on the team.
Yeah.
No one else in the league. No one else in the league is in that situation. If you look at the other players, Draisaitl's got 110 points, but McDavid's got 97. You look at Pasternak. He's got a ton of points this year, but you've got Marchand there. You've got Bergeron there. You have other players. Panarin has Zibanejad. You have other players who are close to them and putting up similar numbers. MacKinnon's the only one where Nathan MacKinnon is up here and everyone else on his team is down here. And that's because they missed a lot of time with injury. I mean, Rantanen normally would be right up there with MacKinnon point-wise, but he missed Rantanen probably missed half this season between his two injuries, and Makar missed time, and Landeskog missed time as well. So they ended up only in the 30-something point range, where MacKinnon, MacKinnon's up over 90 points now, which is unreal.
Yeah. All right. Next one. Probably an interesting one. What team should Gerard Gallant coach? I think there's options for New Jersey. Because me and Grant have been discussing should Gallant coach for New Jersey since John Hines got fired with New Jersey, and Minnesota, Bruce Boudreau out. So who do you think that Gallant might coach?
Well, first I want to say Gerard Gallant should be a top 3 candidate for any coaching position in the NHL. Any team that is looking for a coach, Gerard Gallant should be at or near the top of your list for coach, because he is an incredibly good NHL coach. We saw he took a team in Florida that never wins anything and took them to the playoffs. He then went to Vegas and literally went to the Stanley Cup final with an expansion team. And I'm going to tell you right now, the team that should want Gerard Gallant the most, Seattle. Seattle should be the team that goes and gets Gerard Gallant. So he can take that formula and do what he did in Vegas and do it in Seattle and make them a winner right away. I think any team that's looking for a coach is going to want Gerard Gallant. The team that should get him and should go out and pay him whatever he wants is this new Seattle team. Whatever they're called, it should be Seattle. Should be Vegas 2.0, another expansion team. Go for it.
I'm gonna be so surprised out of my seat right now when he gets hired by Seattle.
Oh my God! You see, I think New Jersey or Ottawa would definitely want to pick up Gallant. The problem is, I don't know if you necessarily want to coach there. And you also have Pierre Laviolette, who's still a pretty good coach as well. You still have him in the top 3 as well. So I could see a team like New Jersey or Ottawa, they want to pick him up and say, get a good coach and, get the youngins all straightened out and stuff. And then that's where, you would see Gallant go to Seattle. Kraken, hate the name. But anyway, that's where you would, see him going to Seattle. So it certainly should be interesting. I do think Gallant is a top 3 non-coach in the league right now. And definitely, whether it be Seattle or an NHL team is struggling, someone's got to hire him. At least in the next offseason or two. That would be a huge mistake. I think I'd be even shocked if he slips all the way to Seattle. I think a team should sign him this offseason, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, even if he does slip all the way to Seattle next season, the expansion draft, I would honestly be shocked he was not hired for that long.
Yeah. I think there's another thing that I forgot to mention. Maybe Toronto, if the Maple Leafs, if the season resumes, if the Maple Leafs let's say fall out let's say 4 or 5 games,
it's gonna happen.
Let me finish. I think Sheldon Keefe might take a step back from coaching, maybe go to New Jersey or Minnesota, just to fill in the roster slots or the game slots, so that young kids can come in, so that they can have a quick rebuild. That's what the Rangers are aiming for. Is when was a 3-year rebuild? Probably another a 3-year rebuild like Minnesota. So maybe Minnesota, quick 3-year rebuild, and then go in there, because I think Gallant, don't get me wrong, he's one of the best coach, Jack Adams level coach.
Yeah, he's a great coach.
Yeah, 100% right. We I bring up Laviolette, but we also, I think, are forgetting that, Mike Babcock is also available, same as Bruce Boudreau. I feel like teams with young players, they would want to pick those guys up. And, a team like Minnesota, just do a quick 3-4 year rebuild, and then out the door you go. And then maybe they pick up, then's the chance Seattle gets to pick him up. So Gallant is definitely an interesting story to follow this offseason. I don't think he will slip all the way to Seattle next year in the expansion draft, but I guess we will certainly have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. I'll go one more, and then Grant. I'm not sure if you took your topics, but we'll have you be in next.
Let's still talk about a couple things. So
okay. We need to talk about Justin Abdelkader, and yes, what is Abdelkader doing in Detroit? Like, he has not produced anything, not worth of $4.25 million per year. This contract is end till the
2023.
Season. The year dad gonna graduate high school. So, do you think
he didn't score a goal this year? I mean, I'm laughing because he didn't score a goal.
Yeah.
Right? Justin Abdelkader was a good player. When the Red Wings were good, Abdelkader was a good, gritty, middle of your lineup type guy. They should have never signed him to this massive contract. I mean, for him to be signed another 3 years is just ridiculous. And he hasn't lived up to that money at all over the past couple of seasons. And we've seen a steady regression with Justin Abdelkader. And I think he's heavily a buyout candidate. I don't know if they buy him out this year, because the Red Wings aren't a team. I mean, they're obviously in full rebuild mode. They're the worst team in the league by a million. They're not desperate for money or anything like that. So I don't think there's any necessity for them to necessarily buy him out right now. But 2 years down the road, or after next year, or 2 years down the road, he's 100% a buyout guy, because when you start getting good again and you start having to pay players and start having guys coming off their ELCs, you're going to need that cap space, and you cannot afford to be giving Justin freaking Abdelkader $4.25 million a year to score you 0 goals on the season.
Yeah, and John,
look at this stat this year: 49 games, no goals, 3 assists, and this guy was scoring like 20, 30 points just 2 years ago. What happened? What are the Red Wings doing? Poor Dylan Larkin, save him right now.
Yeah. Detroit needs Alexis Lafreniere.
Yes.
Detroit desperately needs Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah. And here's a question, John. If they take Lafreniere, do you think Abdelkader is going to immediately be out, maybe?
No, because Lafreniere is going to be on an ELC for the first 3 years. So, again, they're not in a cap situation where they're tight up against the cap or desperately need money or anything. So, I mean, they could buy him out. I mean, that's obviously a terrible contract. They could buy him out just to get that contract off the books. But I mean, it's not a necessity. Detroit's going to be bad for a little while here. This is not a Boston Bruins bad for 2 years in 2015-16 and then right back into the playoffs and a contender again. This is not a quick rebuild. This isn't a New York Rangers quick rebuild here with Detroit. They are going to be bad for a while. Now, the good news is that Steve Yzerman is their general manager, and he built Tampa Bay into an absolute powerhouse, from being one of the worst teams in the league in the late 2000s to being a perennial Stanley Cup contender. I have no doubt that he can do the same thing with Detroit, but it's going to take a little while. And these contracts that Ken Holland left him with, like the Trevor Daley contract, like the Jonathan Ericsson contract, like the Justin Abdelkader contract, Darren Helm. I mean, I could keep going on and on with these terrible.
Mike Green.
Yeah, Mike Green. I lay on Green at the deadline. Lucky for them. I could keep going on and on with these Detroit contracts that they need to come off the books before Detroit can properly get this team back to being a playoff level team for sure.
Yeah, and add Danny DeKeyser and Drew Miller
Drew Miller is still on the books for Detroit. I didn't even realize that.
No,
Bro, I thought Drew Miller went to the KHL like 3 years ago.
Yeah, but if they bought him out, they'd still have to pay him. He'd still count.
True.
Well, like he's not on the roster, but like when you were talking about the Ken Holland, you were saying like
Drew. Oh yeah, then it was an endless number of terrible contracts. Well, it was the same thing. Yeah. It's very similar to what Chiarelli did in Boston, where he fell in love with these certain players. So Boston wins the Cup in 2011, and they had a gritty, hard-working team in 2011 that the fans, that was me. That was my freshman year of high school. We were so happy. We loved that team, and, Bruins fans loved all of those players. The problem was Chiarelli fell in love with those players too and gave so many of them way too big of contracts. Ken Holland did the same thing with Detroit. He, when Detroit was still good in the late 2000s and early 2010s, he fell in love with a lot of these players, and they were winning playoff games, and they were a good team. And he saw guys like Drew Miller and Darren Helm and Justin Advocator and all of these guys who were good depth players and gave them way too big of contracts. And now you're in a situation where those contracts are coming back and biting you because they never should have been signed in the first place.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. What is Justin Advocator's future now? I think in the KHL, I really don't know why a team would want to pick him up. So see Justin Advocator kind of in the Jory Laterra boat. I think he is going straight to the KHL whenever the Red Wings decide to buy him out for sure.
Yeah,
he
had an abysmal year.
Yeah. All right, Grant, would you like to take over right now?
Yeah, I only have a couple more topics I want to talk about, and one is pretty self-explanatory, and it will be pretty brief, but I think this was such a smart move by the NHL. Next season's NHL Global Series will be postponed to 2021. Same games, same teams, but of course, due to the coronavirus, it will be postponed from 2020 to 2021. Absolutely smart move. Of course, the NFL also canceled their London games and stuff. So this 100% makes sense that the NHL would cancel a Global Series. Obviously, don't want to do anything, crazy, and especially, this close, in between everything. So definitely smart move there. That was just a quick announcement. But the main thing I want to talk about is the Coyotes president and CEO, Aaron Cohen, announced yesterday he is all of a sudden, don't know why, but he is no longer with the franchise. I don't know what's up, but I could tell you one thing right now. This could definitely hurt Arizona a lot because I felt like he was doing a good job. Arizona finally, after years and years of struggling, they, the past couple of years, they've finally been like a borderline playoff team. And, would you guys think that this would set them back at all? I think it might.
Yeah. John, would you like to go?
No, you can go, man. This is really interesting. This has behind the scenes stuff written all over.
Definitely. Yep.
All right. Yeah, this is gonna hurt Arizona for sure. Like Arizona is trying to work hard. They have Jacob Chikrin on the back end. They have who's the Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I don't want to forget that. You got Clayton Keller, Darcy Kemper, Aiden Hill as backup, like a regular goaltender for Aiden Hill. Pretty much. And Taylor Hall. So I'm gonna feel bad for Arizona next season because this might hurt very bad, and it's not gonna go well for Arizona as far as I'm concerned. So John, what about you?
Yeah, this has behind the scenes stuff written all over it. Now, I don't know how involved he was on the hockey side of things, but I know he was very involved on the business side of things. And for Arizona, that's huge because Arizona is a team that has over the years struggled with attendance. They've struggled to make money and actually, support themselves as a franchise. They've needed a lot of help from the league. They've struggled with attendance, like I said. They're business-wise, this is a team that has been, throughout their history, kind of struggled quite a bit. And it does get better when they're a winning team. That's, when they're good, the fans come and they get better support. But when they're not good, and unfortunately they haven't made the playoffs since
2012.
2012, yeah. They haven't made the playoffs since 2012. I don't think they were going to make it this year. I don't think Taylor Hall is going to be back.
He wants to win, like you saw in the video.
Yeah, he's. I don't see Taylor Hall going back to Arizona. They made the deal for Phil Kessel, and then Phil Kessel had a terrible season this year. Kessel only scored 14 goals this year. I mean, that's a third line. That's a third liner. Phil Kessel this was a guy who was putting up 80 to 90 points with Pittsburgh, had 14 goals this year with Arizona. Now, Arizona plays a much more defensive style, so he's not going to put up the same offensive numbers as he would with a team like Pittsburgh. But 14 goals, I mean, that's brutal.
He's like Jeff Skinner right now.
Literally. It's very similar. It's just, again, I don't know. Obviously, they have John Chayka as the GM. I assume he has most of the control over the hockey side of things. But from a business side, this is not good for the Coyotes because he did as their president over the last couple years. The Coyotes were a franchise on the upswing. Attendance was getting a lot better. The team was getting better. Support was getting better. Financially, they were in a much better place than where they were, before he was hired. And now he's just parting ways with the franchise. I mean, I don't know what the deal is, if it's, exactly what's going on, but this has behind the scenes stuff written all over it that we may never get the full story on.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely alarming if you're Arizona, especially like you mentioned. I mean, having made the playoffs since 2012, struggled for attendance for so many years. Finally, you've come all that way. You're finally, you're so close to a wildcard spot. You're, about to break that playoff drought. Then all of a sudden this happens, and now, Taylor Hall might leave. Phil Kessel's been underperforming, and, oh, dear, now it looks like you might be heading backwards right when it looks like things were getting bright. But I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, but I would definitely think this is nothing but negative news for Coyotes fans. But
yeah, it certainly isn't good.
Yeah. Here's another question. Do you think Arizona might end up like the Atlanta Thrashers level, or not really?
I mean, they're already getting moved to the Central Division because Seattle's taking their spot in the Pacific. So they're going to be in the Central Division in a couple years when Seattle comes in. Could they get – I mean, the one thing that makes me think that they're not going to get relocated the way that Atlanta was is that Arizona has basically been Gary Bettman's pet project. And Bettman does not want Arizona to move. The NHL as a league has been so dead set on forcing it to work in Arizona that I don't really think that they're going to leave. Houston is sitting there waiting for a team, and they're not going to get an expansion team because I think once Seattle comes in, the NHL is going to stay at 32 for a while. Finally, finally they have things evened out. Your divisions will all have 8 teams. Your conferences will both have 16 teams, which hasn't been the case for the last few years. They finally evened everything out. I think the NHL is going to stay at 32 teams for quite a while. Yeah, so that takes more expansion out of the question. So the only way for a new city to get a team would be for a current team to relocate. Houston is sitting there waiting for a team. I think they are next on the list for an NHL team. They've got a massive market, a natural rivalry with Dallas, just sitting there waiting for it to happen. They've always had a minor league hockey team in Houston that has been extremely well supported. If Arizona is going to move, it's going to be to Houston, would be my guess. But I think the NHL is so set on forcing it to work in Arizona that I don't think they end up moving. I think unless the team goes bankrupt or something like that, then they would have to, obviously. But without something dire like that happening, I don't think they're going to move.
Yeah, you bring up Houston. I actually think Milwaukee, another good place that could use an NHL team as well. And, it's just all these places where, it's like, can the NHL just give up on the Coyotes yet? But like you said, it is Gary Bettman's project to, have this team last for as long as they can. So, I mean, I just think, they're finally getting everything all evened out with Seattle coming in a couple years, but I just don't know what the future for the Coyotes is gonna be. Could I see them out of the league in 10 years? Yes. Could I see them still being there? Still struggling with attendance issues and all that good stuff. I could also see that happening as well. It just really depends on what is Gary Bettman gonna do when it comes to when this team is going to probably eventually be near bankrupt. I mean,
yeah. All right. So John, we'll have it to you right now. So this is the situation for the Boston Bruins. So you've done a video about Yarrow Halak resigning. So right now that gives the space $669,543. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm on cap friendly.
Yeah, I'm on cap friendly too.
All right. So for the upcoming free agents, you have Joakim Nordstrom, Andres Bjork, Jake DeBrusk. Bjork and DeBrusk are done under ELC. Krug, we need to talk about. Chara is another talk. Matt Grzelcyk, and you can talk about the minor league guys like Richie. Tell me if I'm gonna say it wrong. Zach Senyshyn.
Yeah, he sucks.
Carson Kuhlman, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Gauntz, and Solaric. So, John, take it away.
All right. So, most of those guys in the minor leagues aren't going to have much of a bearing on the NHL in their cap situation as far as the NHL goes, because, you're not going to see Senyshyn. You're not going to see Gauntz or Solaric. Solaric actually is probably going to just be let go. He's come out. Carson Kuhlman really is the one down there that has seen somewhat significant NHL time. You also have Trent Frederick and Jack Studnicka coming up. Now, they're not on expiring contracts, I don't believe. No, neither of them are on expiring contracts, but they are going to be pushing for NHL spots very soon. They're probably the two best players down in Providence. Boston's got an interesting situation here. So Kevin Miller obviously has missed all of this year. He has major knee problems at this point. I don't see him coming back and playing again. He's a UFA. He's not going to be re-signed, so that's his contract will be off the books. Chara, I mean, he says he wants to come back. I mean, he's 42 at this point. I can't see him playing for another team. He's been in with Boston for so long now. I can't see him playing for another team. But does Boston at this point really want to? I mean, to me, the top priority, obviously, you need to sign Jake DeBrusk. He's your second line left wing. He and David Krejci have played very, very well together. You're re-signing Jake DeBrusk. He's a big piece of this team's future. And Torrey Krug, and I've said this on my channel, Alex, so many times.
Yeah.
Boston needs to re-sign Torrey Krug. He is their best all-around defenseman as far as someone who brings offense to the table and is very underrated in his own zone. Torrey Krug gets the label of offensive defenseman, like he can't play defense. He is underrated in his own zone. He's certainly not a shutdown defenseman. He's not Ryan Suter. You're not going to put him out there against Sidney Crosby and say, all right, your job is to shut down Sidney Crosby. Like, he's not that kind of defenseman, but he's a good player in his own zone. And he's by far Boston's best offensive defenseman. We've seen McAvoy take massive strides defensively, but the offense really, the offense hasn't fully shown up for McAvoy yet, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't think that's a negative on McAvoy at all. He's still only, 21, 22 years old?
Yeah.
Right. McAvoy needs to learn the defensive part of the game, which he's done extremely well. And Carlo has shut down D-man written all over him for the next 10 to 15 years. I've been so impressed with Brandon Carlo this year. But he's another guy, he doesn't rack up points. He's not a guy who's going to come out and score 50 points in a season. He's going to score 25 points in a good year. McAvoy, I see being kind of a 40-point guy, but probably not a 50, 60, 70-point type defenseman. I really want Boston to re-sign Torrey Krug. For them to do that, here's one thing that needs to happen, because they need money for Jake DeBrusk as well.
Yes.
They're going to have to trade John Moore. John Moore, to me, kind of like the odd man out on that blue line, especially you have Lausanne, who came up and played pretty well as a bottom pair guy this past season. You've got Connor Clifton, who we know can be an adequate bottom pair guy. You've got Grzelcyk, who I would assume they'll probably bring back on a bridge deal. Another, guy who can add some offense to that group. They're kind of loaded on the back end, to be honest with you. They not necessarily with great players. They don't have those, I'm not saying that these guys, with the exception of maybe McAvoy, are going to be elite level defensemen, but they are kind of loaded with good, solid NHL defensemen. Right. I think
kind of the same boat as Columbus.
Yeah, very similar to Columbus. Yeah, and I think, at this point, you probably trade John Moore. And if you trade John Moore, that opens up $2.75 million in cap space, which gives you enough money to take $2 million of that and put it towards adding to Torrey Krug. So people think, all right, Torrey Krug is going to get around $7 million in free agency. Boston doesn't need $7 million in cap space. He's already making 5.25. So if they take $2 million from John Moore's contract that they trade away and give that to Torrey Krug, that's $7.25 million for Torrey Krug, which again, you might get him to sign for slightly less than that. Mm-hmm. And you can keep Krug and hopefully be able to have enough money between maybe getting Char to take less, and so you signed DeBrusk and Grzelcyk as well.
I apologize. It's my brother. And one thing that I want to point out. So I'm sorry, John, to bring this up. So Zboril, so he's a restricted free agent. Do you think they're going to sign him and trade, or just do something?
No, they might sign him and keep him in Providence. But I'll tell you this right now. I've seen enough of Jakub Zboril. He's never going to be an NHL defenseman. He's never going to be an NHL regular defenseman. I have not seen anything from him that makes me think he's going to make the NHL on a full-time basis. I think that was a waste of a draft pick. We should have gotten Matt Barzal. We should have gotten Thomas Chabot. Senyshyn and Zboril are not NHL players. I see Providence enough. I go to a lot of games every year. They're not NHL players.
You're like me when I go to a lot of Hershey Bears games. And
you can see who's good and who's not. And the players that have NHL potential, you can see that NHL potential when they're playing in the AHL. Mm-hmm. Like Studnicka is going to be an absolute stud. This kid is fantastic. He is going to be a top 6 center for the Boston Bruins. Trent Frederick, not a whole lot there offensively. I think he's going to be a third-line center. He's my favorite player in Providence. He fights a lot. He will beat the wheels off of anybody. He's big. He's like 6'3", good size, goes to the corner.
I'll go to the last 2 topics, which I'll make it quick. On the Post to Post podcast, like a couple months ago from the trade deadline. So, do you think that Joe Thornton should have been traded from the trade deadline? Like we seen, like Ray Bourque done it, Boston to Colorado. Do you think that Joe Thornton should have gone to that level, like what Ray Bork did in 2001?
I mean, I was there. Again, I'm not a GM. I'm not involved in trade discussions. I don't know what the market was for Joe Thornton, but my question would be, was there even really a market for Joe Thornton at this point where he's 40 plus years old? He's definitely on his last leg as far as his NHL career goes. He's one of the greatest players of this generation. Don't get me wrong, but he's not anymore. He's a bottom of your lineup type player at this point. I don't know if there was even really a market out there for Joe Thornton. And the other question is, does he want to leave San Jose? He keeps re-signing these short-term deals with San Jose. He's been there for so long now. Does he even really want to leave San Jose? Or does he just want to finish out his career with the Sharks where he spent a large majority of it and then just retire and go off into whatever he does after hockey? That's a complicated question, and there's a lot that goes into that on multiple ends, from the player's perspective, from the team's perspective, and just from, was there a trade market for Thornton at all to begin with? Would it have made sense for the Sharks to trade him away if all they were going to get in return was a 7th round draft pick that's pretty much useless?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I mean, who really would want to go after Thornton at the moment? I mean, I think Thornton wouldn't even want to leave San Jose to begin with as well. But the real question is, I mean, who would really want him? I mean, maybe the Penguins might trade, like you said, like a 6th or 7th round pick to, pair him up with, Patrick Marleau. But I mean, really, well, what's that going to do? I mean, Thornton. I mean, like you say, basically on his last leg. I think he should retire after this year, 100%.
I agree.
He might sign another 1-year deal. It seems doubtful, but he might. I would be shocked if he did. But I mean, for Joe Thornton, I think right now there's no year.
And last question to wrap this up. All right, we're good.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Last question, which is a John question. So I told you this when we start, that Bergeron deserves to wear the C when Char retires. So what makes it so important or obvious that Bergeron deserves to wear the C?
I mean, he's played his whole career with the Boston Bruins. He was drafted in 2003. He played in Boston as an 18-year-old, and he's played literally every second of NHL action that Patrice Bergeron has played has been in a Boston Bruins uniform. He's been an alternate captain on the team forever now. He's worn that A for probably a decade at this point. He's had that A on his jersey. Now, there have been people and there has been talks about giving Bergeron the C before Chara retires. And as a Bruins fan, I am very against that, because for me, this is kind of an old school approach, but for me, for you to take the C away from somebody, you only do that for like a bad reason. Like if you lose the C, you did something wrong. Like that was, something bad happened. Either, your leadership was lousy and the team lost on a, playoff run that they should have never lost on, or, there has to be a reason to take the C away. And Zdeno Chara 100% has been one of the best captains in Boston Bruins history, probably up there with Ray Bork, as far as, longtime captains go. He's done nothing to deserve to get the C taken away. So I am against that. But when Chara does retire, there is no one else even in the discussion to get the C for the Boston Bruins other than Patrice Bergeron.
100% agree with you. Absolutely. With Bergeron, getting the captaincy once Chara retires, and definitely Chara should not be stripped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on board with both of you. All right, that will wrap up for episode 4 of the Powerskateshow podcast. John, thanks for coming out. Do you want to add anything about it?
No, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, so hopefully maybe we can do this again sometime. And check out Off the Wall Hockey on YouTube. Looking to keep growing, and we got plenty of hockey stuff coming your way.
Yes, and I will link to John's YouTube channel in the comments or the description at the end of this podcast on Grant's Sportscaster and my Sportscaster. just to make everything work out. And that will wrap up as well. If you guys like this, please hit the like button. That's gonna make us more podcast videos. And once again, check out John's YouTube channel, Off the Wall Hockey. He does funny live streams. Do not ask him to show the game because he will rage 24 hours. And check out Grant's sportscaster, as you can see on the screen at Floodster. Check out on our Instagram at Powerskateshow. We don't have a Twitter yet. If we get a logo, I made my own logo, which was the NHL draft, but who cares? Thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you enjoy it. And Grant, do you want to do the outro?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Grant Fluff from Fletcher Sports Zone, along with Alex Soso and John from Off the Wall Hockey, saying have a good night, everybody.